Okay, we'll call the meeting to order tonight for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We have present tonight Councilman Wadman, Councilman Carn, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Comber, and Councilwoman Barton. So we do have a quorum tonight. I've asked Councilman Wadman to lead us in our invocation, and then Peyton Harrison was volunteered by his mom to lead us in our pledge.
Our Father, which art in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity we have to exercise our citizenship in this beautiful country and unite here as citizens of Saratoga Springs and as representatives. We are grateful for those that support the city, the staff, the public safety, public works, and those that are behind the scenes that don't get credit. We thank you for them, and we ask you to bless them with their endeavors to make this a beautiful place to live. Father in heaven, we are grateful for the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us, and we ask thee that we can represent the citizens well here, and that we can have civil discussions and practice our freedom of having citizens run the government. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Everyone please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Okay, we have a presentation of the Youth Council Oath of Office.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Rochelle Mosley. I don't know what I do. I head the Youth Council. I'm the representative for the city. I will read the names of our board and then the other members. And if you guys will just stand up as I read your names, I'm going to try to get out of the way so they can see. Maggie Wooden is our mayor this year. Samuel Allen is our secretary. Stay standing because you're going to have to come up here. McKay Jensen is our mayor pro tem. Lydia Prestwich is our volunteers coordinator. And Marcy Havens is our timer. She keeps us starting on time and ending on time. Okay, other members of the Youth Council. Anastasia, help me say your last name. Esidu. Avery Weiner. Braden Hansen was here, had to leave. Bruce Cameron. Dallin Robbins. Grant Jensen. Jake Ewert. Logan Cameron. Max Hudson. Maya Parker. Mailing Stinger, Peyton Harrison, Sarah Pease, Seth Esadu, Thomas Cahoon, and Zach Wooden. And then I had someone show up that I didn't have my list, so I'm so excited you're here. Tell me your name. First name? Bryn. I have her, so I have 21 for this year. And we're hoping to get a few more. We've got some that said their friends want to join.
Rochelle, you have one more back here. Ryan.
Oh, Ryan Easley is back there too. And then she didn't want me to say anything, but our parent volunteer that helps me with the youth council, she's back there. She's hiding. She didn't want me to say anything, but I really appreciate her. This is her third year working with us. So, okay, guys. You want them to take it here or come up here?
Going to come up in front of the dais.
Okay, come on. Should I move this?
They'll go that way.
Okay. Just sneak in over there and come up here.
Dylan here. If you could just leave just the screen and go on both sides of it.
Yep, and you're just gonna face here.
All guys in the back, come on.
Face the mayor.
Yes.
Because he's going to give you the oath.
Cover Councilman Wilden, he's intimidating from this side.
Tall people in the back, you're tall, get over in the back, you're tall. Fill in this side too, Val.
Thomas, don't be shy.
We all wave to Jim.
Okay, you ready?
Ready? If you'll raise your right hand, I state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support. Obey and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Utah. And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, council and mayor, and you guys are excused. If you want to stay, you can. The board must stay.
The board needs to come.
Yeah, so
Yes, the board needs to come up.
So, yeah, Maggie, that'll work too. We're at an hour.
Oh, we need waters for all of them.
If he needs to leave,
This is your weapon?
So I will, you'll actually make the motion about help, but there's not too much. You know what, there's only one motion.
Yeah. Corinne's getting some pictures. Everybody smile. Okay, thank you. So tonight, as part of welcoming the new council, we have the youth council run the meeting with us tonight. So we'll do public input, and then at reports, we'll turn that over and let the youth mayor start running the meeting. So we do have public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, or matters not listed on the agenda tonight. If you're here for the public hearing, item 1, Proposition 13, Recreation, Arts, and Parks Sales Tax Use. Please save your comments for the public hearing. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Total time for public input will be limited to no more than 15 minutes. Is anybody here for public input? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public input and go on to reports. Yep. So you just ask the council if there's any.
Does the council have any reports?
I probably shouldn't do this because I'll probably get in trouble, but I'm going to anyway. I just want to give a big shout out to Mark because September is his 14th anniversary for being here in Saratoga Springs. So awesome. Thank you for all you do. I obviously just have gotten to know him. But how grateful are we that we've had him here for 14 years to honestly be a part. I mean, like, no one better to have our city grow like this. Like, it's, you guys, I mean, obviously everybody who's been out here for this long knows the growth out here, and I don't feel like we could have had anybody better doing it for us. So thank you, Mark, for your 14 years, and hopefully you're here for the next whenever you retire. So anyway, we won't let you go anywhere. Hopefully we can keep you from doing that. But thank you, and I know I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyway. We appreciate you. We're grateful that you're here, and our city is great and love us because of you. So
He can't retire until the cemetery is built.
that's true. So we have at least until then.
That way we keep him in the city.
Mark was just hoping
Stephen, thank you for that.
Mark was just hoping his review was.
Say Councilman McComber, take his mic on.
Councilman McComber?
So I just wanted to, this is the last city council before we have our fall festival. Just want to encourage people to attend the fall festival that's coming up. What are the dates on that? 4th. And that's a great time, great event. We have a light at Redwood Road, so it's going to be so much better this year, traffic getting in and out. And just really want to encourage people to attend that and just have a wonderful evening. And maybe we'll be dressing warm because there is snow on Timpanogos, but you know what, rain or shine, it's a fun time. So encourage people to attend.
Reports from the administration.
Mayor and council, thank you. We don't have any significant items. If there's any questions or anything that comes up, we can address those later in the meeting. We do have a couple of work session items towards the end of the agenda, and so we'll be having some presentations on that. We do have need for a closed session tonight, so that's all we have for right now. Thanks.
So I'll entertain a motion for consent items.
I move.
Sorry, the mayor's got it.
Did she say it yet? Oh, sorry.
Consent for,
Entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
I
move.
move
To approve.
to approve the minutes of September 3rd, 2024.
So you have first from Councilman.
I second.
So I have first from Councilman McComber,
First from McComber.
second from
Carn.
Carn.
Second from Carn.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Any opposed?
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Public hearing. The council will accept public comments on the following. Proposition number 13, Recreation, Arts, and Parks Sales and Use Tax, the RAP tax. Public hearing to receive input from the public with respect to the levying of 1.1% sales and use tax and the potential economic impact that the facilities to be financed in whole or in part with proceeds of said tax will have on the private sector.
We will open the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is anybody here for public input? You'll come up and state your name and address for the record.
Ruth White, 1271 Willowbrook, Saratoga Springs, 84045. I'm just speaking in favor of the RAP tax. In my professional job, I deal with cultural things all over the state, and I know that the RAP taxes around the state do a lot of good for the communities that they serve. And, a little bit of money, $1,000 to an arts group or a rec group or a parks group makes a big difference in what they can deliver for the community.
Can I get your name one more time?
Ruth White, spelled like the color.
White, Ruth, can I get?
She probably filled out the form.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I
I'll fill it out.
I
I'll
didn't
get
fill
your
it.
information later. You
Am I
have-
supposed to fill something?
There's something out there, yeah.
Lance's our rookie.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I'm the rookie, but anyway.
There's like a little form that you can fill out.
I'll do it right
Write
now.
it on his hand.
Anybody else here for public input? Seeing none, I'll close the public.
Seeing none, we will close public.
We don't need a motion or anything on this, we're done, right? Okay. Work session.
Work session, number 1, UDOT Mountain View Corridor Southern Extension Environmental Document Update presented by Avenue Consultations.
Quite a crew here for this, so if everyone that's here for this presentation, could you stand as part of this team? So you've got representatives kind of representing all this group, so just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
One off. All right, perfect. So I'm Tyler Faddis, a project manager for UDOT, Region 3. And to introduce the team here with UDOT, we've got Tyler Allen, environmental lead, Eric Rasband, project manager / former planner. And then we got Wyatt Woolley as our public involvement for UDOT. And then for Avenue Consultants, we have Craig Bowen, public involvement. Jeremy Christensen, design lead, and then Justin Peterson is the environmental lead. And so we're here to kind of give you a project update status on the state environmental study that is being conducted for Mountain View Corridor. We can call it Mountain View Corridor South, extension south. The design is it's a high level view of the corridor, and then to the high level design to indicate or identify the footprint or needed right of way or impacts to the city infrastructure. And so in this environmental study, it's a 10-mile, let me change, no worky. That works. There we go. Manually? Sounds good. So this environmental study is a 10-mile stretch starting at Pioneer Crossing or SR 73 to Redwood Road near Pelican Point. And the need for this, or the proposed action, is to deal with projected population growth in Saratoga Springs and this part of the county, vehicle-dependent land use patterns, lack of north and south routes in this area, and underdeveloped road grid network in the northwest Utah County. And so the goals of the project is to enhance the network connectivity and vehicle mobility in the northwest county, specifically southern Saratoga Springs, and then supporting the active transportation improvements parallel to the proposed action and to be consistent with existing planned routes. And so if you want to go to slide 3. Perfect. So the study began in the summer of 2023 and will expect it to be done by spring of 2025. And at this point, the study that we have and the team has done the preliminary design, and now they are evaluating the environmental impacts on this on the high level design. And so there's kind of a map of the proposed corridor, and kind of going to go through and kind of explain what the things in the map are. So the general corridor, you can see in the orange highlight or the orange roadway, is the location of a freeway frontage road cross section from Pioneer to Lariat, and so you'll have freeway and frontage roads. And in the light green is the expressway cross section from Lariat to the road to Redwood Road, and we will show cross sections of those two separate sections. The next slide. The diamonds represent the intersections. They're either at grade or grade separated intersection locations. You can see that in the highlighted red, that kind of a blow up to the left. Those are the road connections and cross street accesses between Pioneer Crossing and the Pony Express Parkway. These access points were designed to accommodate the existing and planned roadway network as much as possible. So there have been a lot of development in that area and planned development, so we took those plans to incorporate those as best we could. This road is going to be a limited access roadway. So to limit the accesses will improve mobility in the area. So
So could we clarify that real quick? Just in the northern part of the city, you see where the frontage road section is. The frontage roads will have more access and connectivity, but it will still be limited access onto the corridor itself. And then the green segment to the south, there will only be access points essentially at those intersections. And so it's designed in space to do that. And then the other part of this that we haven't talked about, and these guys probably wouldn't bring it up, but this is also to facilitate basically a freeway corridor ultimately down to Pelican Point in the event that that bridge across the lake happens at some point. That's not the scope of this study. However, it would provide backbone if that were to ever occur. So again, this is not just for South Saratoga. It also includes everything south of us. Obviously, as the I-15 corridor continues to be congested, this will become a critical transportation network component for the whole thing. But again, just wanted to point that out, that the access is onto the freeway portion, but the frontage roads is really designed to help kind of as local roads paralleling that corridor.
We have a couple questions.
McCumber?
So thank you. Just a couple things. I mean, as we're working on this and you're doing the next iterations, Founders Boulevard, we could show that, how it goes around and connects, because you have the Foothill Boulevard, the diamond there. But it'd be nice if it's showing how that would actually, it does already connect. You can, from Founders, then you go around the temple and then it connects to Foothill Boulevard at that diamond that you have right there. And then the other one is I'd like to see Harvest Hills Boulevard on here, because that connects to Foothill, where like Grandview does, and that's north of, well, it's between Market Street and Highway 194. And then my question is, just make sure that those roads are showing, because I think that's important, that showing that connectivity, and that we don't just have 2 points, Pony Express. Right now, it just looks like Pony Express, Pioneer Crossing, and 400 are the only ones that really connect to the Mountain View corridor.
Yeah, and if you were to look at this, the drawings themselves, the frontage roads really are what provide that connectivity on off of it. And so it does kind of still keep them somewhat spaced out, but as far as like the on-ramps and off-ramps and things, they're kind of staggered throughout that whole frontage road network.
Right.
So that the freeway maintains its speeds, and then you've got the on-ramps.
Right. And Harvest Hills is where an on-ramp goes. But then my question for you is, I'm seeing an orange elevated freeway on the north side of that C details map, the red square. Is it, because it was always originally planned, and this is, Councilmember Wilden, you remember this, that it was supposed to be a depressed freeway when it goes behind Harvest Hills. Are you showing that going over Harvest Hills Boulevard now? Or is that still, the original plan was to go under for a long time?
So, yeah, come on, Jeremy.
So Harvest Hills Boulevard itself is actually to the south, or sorry, to the north of 73. And this study takes from, it's almost about where Aspen Hills, running to the south of Aspen. So we don't touch any of the Harvest Hills.
Okay, it's just showing on here as an elevated freeway.
Sorry, let me help with that a bit. So the question for Harvest Hills is this environmental study doesn't reach Harvest Hills, but in the area that's just north of 73 / Pioneer Crossing, that area, the original Mountain View showed it over, but what we're doing is, you see that blue section, the light blue, that section's actually depressed, and so we set it under the ground in that area, and it pops back up about where the park is. And I can explain why we couldn't carry it further, but first let's talk about that part. What that allows is forward compatibility for future plans of SR 73 continuing a freeway frontage road system to the east along Pioneer Crossing, which is another city study that's been completed.
Yeah, we are.
And so that section that you see in light blue is under, it dips underneath 73. The frontage roads themselves will connect. And what you'll see, council member, on the interactive map that we have is all these connections and how they work. This is just kind of a high level look, a global look at, 70,000 feet or whatever. Now, in terms of why are we over for the rest of that section, starting from about Sunrise Park to the south, there's a couple key elements that has prohibited us from being able to take it lower through that whole section. One of which is Fourth North has the main sewer line feeding the entire subdivision, basically from 73 all the way to Fairfield Road. All sewers out of, all the sewer lines come together, a big 15-inch line that crosses at Fourth North. There's also a 54-inch storm drain line that comes through there too. And those both have to go under the canal. Since they have to go over the canal underneath, on the east side of Foothill Mountain View, it would put the freeway way too deep to drain out, since our freeway follows kind of the same contour of the road. And we'd have pipes that were 45+ feet deep underground, which is really tough to maintain, if not impossible. So that's the reasoning behind why we're under through the section in blue, and then we come back up in the section in orange.
Yeah, and is there a reason why we have to go 30 feet in the air?
Yes. Yeah, so it's approximately 30 feet. You
You can see I read your packets.
No, that's good. No, we appreciate it.
That's next slide.
So, yeah, so part of the reasoning of that 30 feet is when you bridge over a cross street, you have 16.5 feet of clearance, so that way you don't have cars hitting or trucks and that hitting the bridge. Depending on the span, so on smaller streets, it's less than that. And the girders can be a lot tighter and lower. And part of what will happen in the final design, because this is just the environmental section, is we'll get to the point where it's let out to bid. The lower you keep that profile, the less expensive it is to import all that material. So in final design, that'll be tuned up and lowered as much as possible while still maintaining the proper clearance of the bridge. So 30 is on the high side.
30 is really high.
It is.
I
And
mean, it's
probably
basically
more
gonna
like-
block everything, all those homes. I mean, all they're gonna see is a big wall of dirt.
So 30 is what we say to be conservative. It's typically less than that. What you'd often see on small streets, especially the small undercrossings, is something more in the realm of 20, 22 feet. Because your girders can be much smaller when you're spanning a lot smaller length. So that's on the high end.
And so, Mark, I just still do want to get clarification on that far north.
If I could, I'll have Jeremy reach out. They're two separate projects,
Yeah,
and so I'll have
get
Jeremy
it.
get to the details on that northern project.
Clarify, something you said, I think, back to your point, which is this exhibit actually is confusing because it's not really to scale. It makes it look like the study goes way farther north to 73 than it does.
That looks like it's going past.
What I heard you say was this environmental really starts at 73, but because they had to.
No, he said Aspen Boulevard.
Yeah.
Because they had to redo the environmental, because the old environmental didn't account for the underpass, they now extended this environmental north of 73 just to cover the change of the road going from over to under.
Yes.
So, and then Jeremy, you were here when we went over, was behind Wilden's home. It was supposed to go underneath Harvest Hills Boulevard. So when you reach out to the other team, if you can, because they've built up dirt, you can see the dirt is being built up to go over. It was supposed to be, because those homes were there long before this was ever planned, before it was on anyone's radar. The other area, south, as much as I don't want it up, all of these people moving here have known this road is coming. Sunrise Meadows was here 23 years ago.
Yep.
And so as far south as you can possibly go, and still, I mean, we go up Parley Canyon, we can handle a little bit of a steep grade. So let's keep it down as much as possible. And as soon as we hit those sewer lines, then we can go up and over and get up on a grade. But if we can stay down, it also is a commitment that we made to former Mayor Mia Love. She was adamant about this. And so I just want to make sure that we're being true to what we've said in the past and honoring people's commitments that we've made to people. So thank you.
Councilmember McComber, if I could, I want to point out that we had this exact thing, and that we pushed back as staff really hard when the first iteration that we saw, and said, no, that's not good enough, go back and relook at it, look at it different ways. And to the credit of the design team, they went back and they've explored it, and we are doing the exact same thing, and we've already made substantial improvement over the first round of designs. And so while it's not perfect and it's not final design yet, I want you to understand that we already were making that push on your behalf.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And one more clarification, just because we had some details. There will be no blocked views of anything, of any homes north of the park. So it'll be below grade for the homes that are north of the park. As you get to the park, even though the road's coming out, there's no homes, there's the park. And you guys actually looked at the view corridors. The homes that are immediately west of the park are higher, so they will not have their view blocked. So the
West
biggest,
of the park, yeah.
West Park, the biggest impact will be those homes that are.
Talus Ridge will lose their views.
Correct.
And the homes on, what is that road right there?
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
It's the homes that are right closest. And to your point, we understand and we've made that point and the design teams looked at it.
So no, I know that you're doing everything you
it's a
can, and I appreciate the extra clarification and all the effort that's being made. It just, I wouldn't be doing my part as a representative of the residents if I wasn't stating their concerns and my concerns. Because I mean, we always have our best intent, and then when the science comes in, right, and
Right.
depths are depths, sewer lines are sewer lines, right? But yeah, the further we can get throughout the park as we start to come up, the longer that stays down, the better. So thank you very much. And it's also for noise, because it helps with noise a ton if we can keep it down below.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Turn it back.
Karn?
Yeah, so I just want to understand the design a little bit more south of Lariat, in the green area. Is that design more like Bangor with lighted intersections, or is that full freeway exchanges?
So that's going to just be the expressway. Let's go to answer your question, right there. That's what the cross-section will look like in that light green section. So you point out, I'm going to point out the trails. That's going to be the furthest extent of the impact of the corridor, which will also delineate the needed right-of-way. And then what's
So I guess specifically the orange triangles, are those lights or are they on and off ramp?
those are intersections.
It's like the current map.
Intersections?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, those are the accesses to
So
the.
lit intersections then?
Yeah,
Okay.
or it'll be, signalized intersections.
The ability to convert to interchange.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it is a design somewhat like Mountain View today.
They're leaving the space down.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you see there, you can see the space in the middle, so that the expressways, and then inside of that would be, in the future, whenever they go to the freeway system, it'll convert to a freeway frontage.
Okay. Okay, so when are you breaking ground?
They got to finish the study next spring.
So this statement environmental study is the first step into obtaining funding for the project.
Yep.
We need to understand what the impacts are. We need to understand the cost estimate, high-level cost estimate, and then we go to legislator and ask for funding.
Does your team come up with a high-level cost estimate?
What is it? It's expensive.
It's being quantified right now. So yes, our team does.
Ballpark it.
Hundreds of millions?
So, I mean, I know that UDOT and the legislature prioritized a lot of projects in West Utah County.
Yep.
I think it's
Up there, Eric.
1.3 billion, 1.4 billion. This technically is completely separate from any of those projects, but it's, what we're doing today is great. It'll help us for a while, but this is huge.
So the funny thing is I want to say back in about 13, 14, we did some preliminary designs, and I think we came up with like a $120 million project. And the billions of dollars we would have saved had we done it then as opposed to now. But it is something Eric Rasband, who's with UDOT Region 3, kind of help answer some of those questions. But again, the EIS is what paves the way for us to be able to get in line for those fundings going forward. And I suspect that it might be some incremental projects and other things. And again, as we see development happen, we'll continue to build the initial phases. And that's part of what we really want to work on, which is how can we use the availability of developer dollars and things to kind of help stretch the road to the south and not rebuild it many times over. But this will give us a pattern so that as we continue to the south, developers can build kind of the initial phases. And then we can start using that right away, and then ultimately it can grow into what it needs to become at build out.
Yeah.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Eric Rasband with Region 3. I'm the former planner. I've spent 6 years working with these wonderful staff members. I echo your comments. Yes. So this project has some hurdles. In 2023, the Mountain Land Association updated the long-range plan and moved this project to a Phase 3 project, which suggests that the funding for it won't come available until after year 2043. That's the standard process. So I think that Mountain Land is looking for this study to help inform their next update to the long-range plan. When we look at projects from after the legislature identifies funding, we go through a project prioritization. That project prioritization looks at phase one projects. There is a process to nominate projects that are shown in the MAG plan as a phase one need to be considered for funding. The SR 73 freeway from Mount View out to Ranches is one of those corridors that was nominated in the last cycle. Phase two project, phase one need. MAG currently shows this as a phase three project, phase two need. This study will help inform them as they move forward.
How often do they reprioritize?
Every 4 years.
Okay.
We're currently funded out to year 20 with our program. And so there's time to work with Mountain Land as
A
well.
lot of that is because we don't have the study done.
Right.
Right.
So compared to other projects, we're more shovel-ready.
Right.
This is a big step for the next reiteration to get us off phase three.
But is this realistically with the dollar amounts that are attached to it, a MAG project? I mean, they don't deal in,
This is a state legislature.
yeah, they don't deal in numbers this size.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt for us to get it moved up.
Sure.
No, but corridor preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, corridor preservation, the planning efforts that we're doing right now to make sure no density's put on it, those kinds of things are all critical elements that help hold the costs down for the project, so that as we go for these funding things, we're not spending, tax dollars to try and buy down theoretic density that would have been existing in places like that. So, I mean, it's all part of the process, and, I think the big shout out is that we're talking about a road that isn't even built yet, and it's going to be the solution for future generations. And so the project team's got that vision. They're working hard to meet our needs.
It's the solution for this generation.
Well, and honestly, those projects are queued up for the next 4 or 5 years that will solve a lot of those problems. So to your point, yes, we are looking also for today, but well said.
The reason I mentioned MAG is they're the entity responsible for the long-range plan. And we have to follow their lead as a state, as
Right.
UDOT. We follow their lead. And so that's why it's important to continue to work with Mountain Land. And then if we're able to move that project through the process, great. And then as projects continue to be evaluated, this one, it's a good project. You look at Redwood Road today and what it is and what it could do to help Redwood Road. It can help things. So I can't predict.
So is
what-
the vision, like the orange section, is the vision to build that like we're building it today? Frontage Road 1, Frontage Road 2, fill it in later? Or is it to come in and build it?
Yeah, so this is that southern section. The challenge is as well, the bridge across the lake in the 2019 plan was a phase 3 project. Now it is an unfunded project.
Right.
So as we were doing the evaluation, we could not evaluate the pros and cons of that bridge to follow the federal process and the state process. And so we're trying to preserve a corridor with the trails, knowing that at some point in the future, we likely will need it, but it'll be a roadway that kind of moves in and out between the intersections. At the signalized intersections, we want the roads together because it'll run much more efficiently. If you go to 2100 North and you drive north-south across that road, it's challenging because you go through two closely spaced
Two lights,
intersections.
yeah.
We would like to bring them close together for this project because we don't know how long this has the potential of being in place before a future phase would come in.
Okay.
Add some clarity there. There's some responsibility. I think what you're hearing is we are a member of MAC, so getting the rest of our counterparts to consider moving this up in future RTP updates is going to be a required step that we have to do before UDOT can follow a process, as long as, until we can convince the rest of our counterpart cities to consider moving this up, it's going to be challenging to get UDOT to find funding for it. Now, we can continue to work with developers like we did, or leveraging local dollars to build some portions of these frontage roads, 2-lane roads. But that's obviously not UDOT dollars. That's either local dollars, developer, cooperation or leveraging. To get access to UDOT dollars, the first step is we have to get this change in the future RTP from a phase, maybe not the whole thing, maybe it's a phase 1 or a phase 2. For context on your cost, a question about cost, the freeway they're gonna build in a couple phases between Ranches Parkway and 2100, I-15, in 2 years is about $1 billion.
The segment from Ranches to SR 73 is approximately $500 million.
Well, plus the 2100.
No, that's just.
No, I'm saying if you.
He's
add
saying,
together,
get you from Ranches to the
yes.
freeway.
About $1 billion.
Yeah, so from Ranches Parkway all the way to I-50, projects that were funded, it's $1.3 billion that was recently added
So
to
that's,
Northwest Utah.
for context, that's 7 miles.
Yeah.
Now, however, the frontage roads were already existing in a large portion of
Yep.
that.
Right-of-way was already purchased.
This is 10 miles?
Yeah.
This is 10 miles and you don't have the frontage roads. So, I mean, you can speculate, is this 2 billion, 2.5 billion?
You have a little bit of frontage road. Come on.
A little bit.
We just built it for $24 million.
We built it for about $20 million.
Part of that cost, though, that 1.3 billion, is the tie-in to the current Mountain View corridor, bring that down, right? From Camp Williams all the way down?
It's the tie-in to I-15, so that's one of the most expensive components is the
Yeah.
flyover tie-ins to I-15. Then you have the flyover at 73 and then the continuation out to Ranches Parkway.
Sorry, the Mountain View extension going up to Porter Rockwell in front of the data center.
That's not part
That's
of that.
separate.
That's not part of
That's
that.
not part of the
That's in
1.3.
addition to that 1.3.
Yeah, that's already funded.
My point being is from I-15 to Ranches is 7 miles,
Okay.
and the frontage roads on 2100 and Mountain View behind Harvest Hills are already existing. That's 1.3 billion. This is 10 miles, and except for the piece that we built, doesn't have, so I mean, at least that gives you a ballpark number in your head, or, you're 2-3 billion in today's dollars.
Yeah.
But now you gotta look at, if this isn't built for 20 years, then what's the inflationary change?
Eric, what's the cost on the, that piece that's already funded, the Porter Rockwell tie-in? Is that 360?
Seems low to me. I think it's higher.
466?
Thank you.
Okay, so we're looking at 2 billion almost in investment by UDOT
2.3.
in the next
0.4.
now to the next 10 years.
Yep. By 2031,
Yeah.
about 2.3, 2.4
Okay.
billion. Yep.
That's incredible. It's a huge investment.
But Chris, just to make sure I'm clear, that's without this funding. That's 2 point,
This is separate, yeah.
yeah, okay.
This is unfunded,
Yeah, yeah.
as of now.
That was a good one. We still won't have a high school, but we'll have all these roads. Sorry.
But at least we get 6,000 kids to the same school.
All 6,000 kids can get to Westlake with these new roads.
They'll have classes in the underpasses.
Bad joke.
So has everybody had a chance to look at that side too?
Yes.
Okay. And then, I turn the time over to Tyler Allen, environmental lead.
Does this work?
Yeah, it's the right button.
The right button. All right, we'll see how it goes. I am Tyler Allen. I'm from UDOT. I'm the environmental program manager. I'm just looking over this project. Thank you so much for letting us come and present to you and have this opportunity to kind of just bring you up to date on things. So starting back at the beginning of the state environmental study, we began with really our public outreach process. We began with some online meetings. We had some in-person meeting. We had a public comment period at the very beginning of the process to try to understand some of the resources and issues that were of highest importance to the residents. Some of the things we heard during these times was the need for a second route north-south, the high need for that, especially after the fires from a few years ago. And then we also heard a lot about noise and visual impacts as being high priority issues for residents. We especially heard that at the Splash Days when we came. We had a booth here that it was great fun to be there, by the way, and be able to see everybody and talk to people. Splash Days was a big success to be able to get the word out about this project and find out what was. We put out some design tools to be able to let people know about this project and to be able to see in detail what was going on. We have a website with an interactive map that allows you to zoom in on locations, see how that frontage road and slip ramp system really works, how you would get from point A to point B. You can kind of take a look at that, see where your house is and how you would get downtown using this new roadway system. We had another informal public comment period in June to July following the splash days, just to make sure we had that information available and out there for people, and we could get more feedback once we had that design kind of roughed in. And in that time period, we've also had a lot of stakeholder meetings with landowners, developers, Saratoga Springs Engineering. Mark, you've been a big part of a lot of those. Alpine School District, engineering, and emergency services, to make sure that everyone's comfortable with how we're moving forward, what we're looking at, and where we're going in the future. Let's see. It works. All right. As part of this environmental process, we look at all these resources plus some more. As I said before, a lot of the things we've heard from people was about the impacts to their visual or aesthetics, the noise impacts, outdoor recreation and access to trails east-west across the roadway was another thing that was brought up by the public, wanting to make sure they could get up to Israel Canyon, for instance, or other trails up there. And so we made sure we have some accesses. On the map you saw earlier, those were just the intersections. There's also some east-west accesses that are just underpasses that are not full accesses to the roadway system, but will allow for that access to go back and forth. That way, we're not cutting off that community and that feeling of connectedness in this town. So we're trying not to build this as a barrier, is what we're trying to say. Sorry, was there a...
McCumber?
So one of the things that we've done in the past, we've really worked hard on Redwood Road to have pathways for the antelope and migrating animals. And we also, under Pioneer Crossing, did a pedestrian underneath there to make sure that from our downtown area to like the Fat Cats, Smiths and Ross, all that area, it has a pedestrian access. We put that underneath Pioneer Crossing in preparing for that. Was that being considered as well in this? Is like, so how are we gonna get pedestrians? How are we gonna get migrating animals?
Yes, we have been in communication with our biologist at UDOT to make sure that he's involved in the communications and making sure we're going. The trend is with all the development coming in here, we're gonna have fewer and fewer of those animals on the east side of the roadway.
You'd be surprised, I had a cougar and a coyote on Utah Lake just in the last little bit.
I had a cougar bedding down underneath my tree, and I live in Saratoga Springs.
Yeah, so you understand. It's a little scary. Yeah, I was jogging the other day, and a coyote stalked me until I ran into a neighbor's house because I was. Yeah. So no, I mean, and then obviously we have various animals that like to migrate. So
yeah, so our biologist has been involved in the process.
Okay, great.
We're
Thank
looking at east-west trails and connectedness that way to make sure we have those connections as well.
Okay, so it's not just cars, right? We have other.
Yes, and active transportation is a big part of UDOT right now. We're looking at that statewide trails network to try to make sure we have a network of active transportation as well as transportation.
They're doing a great job in the other project that's not this one. They're making sure that there's pedestrian trail, and I hate for them to do all that and then for us to lose it down here. So thank you.
In fact, the entire length of this one, we are having trails on each side of the roadway as part of the environmental document with grade separated crossings at major intersections.
Great. Thank you.
So we will have that option as well. And that is something we heard a lot about, was that people didn't want to have that feeling that that was their barrier. That was their I-15 stopping them from going east and west. So we want to look at how we could connect them.
We have beat them incessantly over that issue.
Yes. That all I'll say about that.
We were not thrilled with the first, with what happened initially, and that the grade separated crossing is on the wrong side. Like, there's a grade separated crossing on the north side of 2100. There's nothing on our side. And so we made that very clear that we didn't want to repeat that issue.
Yep. And so we are looking at making commitments in the document that will be able to do things. Now, whether all those will happen all at once or if it'll be a phased approach, that will depend on funding and when we get that in, and we've already covered that, I think.
Sorry to clarify.
Yes.
Generally, the philosophy that I think we adopted was, if it's a major intersection, it's grade separated.
Yes.
Where you have medical, market, and those are intersecting this road, again, we can't predict if it'll be funded in the final design, but it is suggesting that those be grade separated. Where you're intersecting a local road, I can't think of the road, but like just a small local road, then those would just be grade, a normal crosswalk.
Agreed, yeah.
But at every intersection of a major collector or major road where you have heavy traffic, usually a signal, the environmental document is suggesting that there be some sort of grade separated, safer pedestrian lanes.
And we don't specify in there what the grade separation will be. That'll be in final design and through coordination with Saratoga Springs and trying to figure out what that will look like in the future. Just that there will be those. Other than that, we are looking at how this will impact right-of-way, air quality, land use, everything up and down through the state environmental process. So really, the next steps we're looking at are preparing and finalizing this state environmental study, getting this to the point where we feel comfortable taking it to the public, as this is our plan, this is what we want to stand by. What do you think of it? And then we'll go from publishing that to having a public comment period. That'll be the formal comment period. We'll address all those comments, look at them, see if there's anything that has been suggested that we might be able to implement or change in our document. We hope that by being very upfront and very open to the public throughout the entire process, that we'll catch most of those things. But if someone brings up something that we can help to accommodate, great. We will take a look at that. That will help with our public hearing early 2025. We're hoping that will be right there in spring or late winter, whenever we call that here. And then publish our decision spring of 2025 and finalize it, and then we can move forward with hopefully getting this in front of the legislature, or whoever needs to hear it, and move forward.
Is that when you publish like interactive maps and things like that?
Actually, we have an interactive map out right now. And we can get you that information here, and
I mentioned to Ann, we're going to get it on.
Scan that right there.
right there. Right there, if you scan that, you'll be able to zoom in, take a look at everything.
I got that.
It has the latest and greatest map that we have for this project, so you can take a look at the slip ramps, how everything will work for you.
Okay.
His Android was not able to, but
Do it here, it's easier.
Yep. So, if you have any comments, if you know of anybody that has any comments that would like to participate in the process and just let us know what their thoughts are on this, have them call our hotline, email us, go to our website to get more information. Our hotline did recently change, just so you know, because
added
of
that.
the amount of spam calls this time of year for whatever reason with the election. I don't know. But, this is the new one here, so we can keep things moving for you. And now we'll open it for the questions, any further questions you might have.
It's not in there.
I was asked mine during, it's easier.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say thank you. I know the work that's going into this. I know you've sat in a lot of MAG meetings with this as stuff goes around. There's lots of projects. We talk about this one. So tonight we're very singular. This is only one project in the county, so it's just getting ourselves positioned to be competitive. So I appreciate your hard work, your thoughtfulness, and all you did here.
Great, thank you. Well, if you do have any more, please reach out and let us know.
Okay, thank you. Work session 2.
Work session 2, Saratoga Alluvial Fan Study.
We have members of the Army Corps engineering team that are doing this presentation remotely, so they should be hopping on shortly, and then I guess we're gonna either let them share a screen or we can do you have the presentation in your packet, but looks like we're getting them share the screen, so.
We're on now, and Sasha's loading the presentation.
Great, well, if you don't mind introducing yourself, I know you all well, but I don't think council does, so.
Certainly. My name is Michelle Brown. I'm the Acting Flood Risk Program Manager for the Army Corps of Engineers Sacramento District. And my colleagues are also here this evening, and we'll be talking Morgan Marlett and Taran Losh. And then we also have Sasha Lucier and Lou Hunter on the line. Next, please. So first, I wanted to say thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate having some time to talk with you and give you some information on a project that we've been working on for quite some time. This project has to do with the flooding and debris flows that the city has experienced in the past and that have affected residential development. The worst debris flow event was after the dump fire in 2012, which burned approximately 6,000 acres in the Lake Mountains, and a rainfall event generated and transported approximately 70,000 tons of debris flow that caused damage to homes, roads, and other infrastructure. A previous study was done in 2020, which identified 14 active alluvial fans that have the potential to affect the city. And at this point, the city has constructed 2 debris basins, and they have. You guys have a plan of additional 5 debris basins. Next, please. So the project goals and approach. Our goal was to further evaluate risks and mitigation strategies associated with alluvial fan flooding in Saratoga Springs. We wanted to provide guidance to help inform future development and information to inform mitigation projects, which would be debris basins. Our approach was to support the city's flood preparedness efforts and ability to make risk-informed decisions. In 2022, we initiated another phase of the project to inform the city of flooding that may result in a range of rainfall events if they were to occur, what the expected geomorphic hazards, landslides, or movement of the earth would be given the past and present geologic conditions, and range of expected debris flow volumes that could be generated within a watershed for various rainfall amounts.
I just have a quick question.
Next, please.
Real quick, so you mentioned that the city has plans for 5 more debate basins. Does that cover the 14, or is it only going to be covering the major ones? Or because some of the basins, I imagine, can control maybe 2 alluvial fans.
I think that will be further discussed in the presentation.
Okay. Okay.
Next slide, please. And Taran.
Hi, my name is Taran Lausch, and I'm one of the geologists on this project. So these are 2 terms that we're going to cover during this presentation, in case you are not familiar or would like a refresher. Alluvial fans are an accumulation of sediment that fans, hence the name, outwards from a concentrated source, such as a narrow canyon. And debris flows are a rapidly moving mix of water, mud, trees, and other materials that flow down valley over great distances, potentially. Next slide, please. So this discusses the overall geologic hazard assessment. The image on the right is our final map of risk for the city. We conducted risk mapping by studying the shape of the fan surface. The sharpness of the features in the imagery helped provide a relative gauge for the youthfulness. Features that had a sharper surface expression are generally younger than those with more rounded features due to processes like erosion. We also had support from observations made during the site visit all the way back in August of 2022, and also by analyzing aerial photographs. Overall, risk mapping in this study is tied to geologic processes. We defined 6 categories ranging from 1 to 6. The highest risk categories are 5 and 6, which cover channelized flows and inundation respectively. Those high-risk categories are represented by the orange and the red colors in the image on the right. We also found that the geologic hazard analysis did not display substantial evidence of past debris flows, which is a good thing. The active zones appear limited to minor portions of the large fans. And as you can see in the map on the right, most of the risk is lighter colored, those whites, those yellows, those greens, which indicates a lower risk compared to the higher risk orange and reds. However, near the tops of the fans on the left side of the image, there is higher risk for damaging flows. This is where confined flows are released and become unconfined and spread out over the fan surface. These areas are the orange and the red on the west side, and the east side, which is towards the lake, unfortunately where most of the residential development is. However, one point that was reaffirmed after the hazard analysis was that damaging flow events are most likely to occur during a large rainfall event after a major fire, which is exactly what we saw during the 2012 dump fire flood combination. Next slide, please.
All right, I'm Morgan Marlatt. I'm a hydraulic analysis engineer at the Corps. I'm going to talk to you about our floodplain modeling as well as our debris flow modeling. We wanted to first remind everyone what flood damage can do. Roughly 1 foot of water on a first floor elevation can cause damage to electrical outlets, furnaces, and HVAC systems. When you hit 3 feet, floodwaters can damage the building infrastructure, water supply, sewage, and plumbing systems. So we just wanted to remind a few people what we're talking about and why understanding the depths of the flood are important. Next slide, please. So we looked at the area, the south part of the city. This is Burnt Canyon, and Israel Canyon area. We looked at the 1% flood. This means its likelihood of occurring in a single year is 1%. It's likely to happen once in a 100-year time frame, but that does not mean that the next one is 100 years away. You could have a 100-year flood, and then the next year another 100-year flood, and then go 200 years without a flood. So what we have here is the lighter blues are the slower depths. 0 to 2 feet is the lightest blue. As you can see around where the temple location is, you have pretty shallow flooding. Most of that would just be in the streets and would go into the street drainage. Over at Burnt and Lock Canyon, most of the flooding would be above the current homes. Israel Canyon has the most significant on this page, but most of that is going to stay confined to the channel. There's a park area that'll get pretty wet, but it's meant to do that. And then it'll continue down and inundate some of the low-lying areas of the golf course. Next slide, please. So here we have Fox Hollow and Clark Canyon North. This flooding is mainly going to be in the streets. There's going to be some places where it's going to be localized ponding in areas. And we wanted to remind everyone that even 6 inches of fast-moving floodwater can knock you off your feet, and 2 feet of depth can float your car. So we do want to remind everyone, never walk, swim, or drive through those waters. Stop, turn around, and go another way, or stay home. So next slide, please. And in the very southern part of town, in Losee Canyon, we have just small areas of street flooding. And then in the watershed just further south where it does not, I don't believe you guys have developed yet, we have some shallow flooding there as well. Next. Oh, I also want to remind you that these are not FEMA flood maps. So these are not to be used for flood insurance purposes. FEMA would have to develop their own maps. Next slide, please. As we move on to debris flow, sometimes people are like, what's the difference between floodwaters and debris flow? When you get a certain amount of soil and rocks and stuff in the water, it starts acting like a non-Newtonian fluid, which I will explain that a little further in a minute. But if 40% of, essentially if you have a glass of water and it's 40% rock and dirt, then it's no longer acting like a regular flood flow. Anything less than 40% of the cup full of solids is still going to act like regular water. So we performed debris flow analysis on the highest hazard alluvial fans that Taran has identified, and these are Fox Hollow, Israel Canyon and Clark Canyon North. We have two kinds of maps we're showing you. We're going to show you the maximum area expected to be impacted by debris flow, and then the maximum depth that is expected to be impacted by debris flow. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over to my terminology. We have this thing called non-Newtonian fluid. Most water acts like a Newtonian fluid, meaning it follows Newtonian laws that you all learned about in school and probably forgot because you don't probably need to remember that. But a non-Newtonian fluid, I'm sure many of you have made the substance called oobleck, where you take cornstarch and water, you mix it together, and sometimes it'll move like a liquid and sometimes it'll move like a solid. Another non-Newtonian fluid that I like to refer to is ketchup. So sometimes think of ketchup as you can have runny ketchup or you can have thick ketchup. And that's what we essentially are putting into our model is the two different kinds of ketchups, because one ketchup's going to go out and spread further and one ketchup's just going to pile up and be deeper. The other term we're talking about is debris basins. These are structures that can capture the debris flow. So when the debris flow is coming down, it's a depressed area that's going to be a place where all the soil and the debris can be captured. And you guys currently have two of those in your town. Next slide, please. So this is our debris flow for Israel Canyon. This is the runny ketchup. So this is the area that if the debris flow is a little more runny of a mixture, it's going to impact these areas. One thing I'd like to note is you do have a debris basin in this canyon, but this model shows what it would look like if there's no debris basin. The debris basin that you currently have has a capacity of 28.7 acre feet. We've done a calculation that the maximum volume expected could be up to 50 acre feet, but there's a wide range. And so the 50 acre feet is the maximum we're expecting. But you can see that the area south of the one park that was impacted by the previous debris flow would be heavily impacted. If that debris basin was not there, that debris basin that is already installed should capture the majority of the solids here. Next slide, please. So this is the Fox Hollow Canyon and the Clark Canyon. We're still in the runnier ketchup mode, so this is the maximum extents we're expecting. And we are also know that Fox Hollow and Clark Canyon are on the list to be a future project. So while we are showing what could happen here, the expectation is a debris basin will be built at some point and prevent the majority of this. Next slide, please. So this is Israel Canyon as if we have really thick ketchup. So if the ketchup is really thick and it comes down, it's not going to go as far, but it's going to be significantly deeper. So you're seeing depths that can get up to 5 and in very special places 10 feet, but not. It's going to be around 2 to 3 feet for the majority of areas where it would land. Next slide, please. This one's Fox Hollow and Clark Canyon. Here, it's still is slightly getting into the residential areas, but not significantly. But once again, debris basins are planned, and they will help eliminate the majority of this. We're not saying that it can't. It's not. You're going to definitely have no risk. There's always a chance that a channel could migrate somewhere else, and so then there's still some inherent risk. But this is the goal of these debris basins is to mitigate risk as best as we can. Next slide, please. So the debris basins that are completed are the Israel Canyon and the Losi Canyon. The planned ones are Burnt Canyon, Lock Canyon, Fox Hollow, Clark Canyon North, and Clark Canyon South. An additional step that we did was we calculated the expected sediment yield for the basins that you are planning to do debris basins on. Calculating this will help you figure out what is good size. So we have multiple values for that with an expected maximum. So you guys can size it based on economics. Next slide, please.
So this brings us back to risk-informed decision-making and managing your risk. Some suggestions that we have to help manage and mitigate risk are to use policies and practices, including emergency action plans, risk communications to residents living near active alluvial fans with instructions to prepare for flooding and debris flow, flood warning systems, policies to designate alluvial fan areas not to be developed, such as parks, outdoor amphitheaters, and other non-permanent structures. Modifying homes that have already been built on high-risk alluvial fans, using options such as elevation of structures or floodproofing, which means using walls on the walls that face the canyon, relocation of furnaces, water heaters, and other types of appliances and electronics to higher locations. And add some new protective structures, such as debris basins, reservoirs or levees, enhanced channel modifications, debris fences, grade control structures, reinforced channels. This information is further discussed in the report that we're providing. We can talk to it a little bit here, but the full descriptions are in the report. Next slide, please. So next steps for the community. Continually update hydraulic modeling to reflect current conditions. The new safe models that are included in the report were created for conditions from 2019 through 2022. We suggest communicating risk assessment results to stakeholders, much as we're doing here today. Review existing local mitigation actions or plans and incorporate and prioritize new risk reduction actions to manage alluvial fan flooding risk. And implement zoning ordinances to reduce or disallow construction in flood and debris flow prone areas. Next slide, please. So that concludes our presentation. I imagine you guys have quite a few questions. How can we help?
Let's go back to Councilmember McComber's question. All of the alluvial fans that were delineated in the first study that they did. So the first study that they did that was with the Silver Jackets, which is the name of a program that the Army Corps does, delineated it, but didn't identify which one was high risk, so it didn't tell us where to focus our efforts because we knew we couldn't mitigate all 15 simultaneously. This study gave us that information of where do we focus first our resources on. All of the alluvial fans, pretty much where there is development, are covered by those basins. Now there's two alluvial fans north, one of them being Reformation Canyon, and those are going to affect either Brixton Park or the church properties there, and they'll need to address that as part of their development. The other ones are south of Lake Mountain Estates, again, when Toguayo or whenever those developments come in. I think the only exception is there are two little tiny ones in between Israel Canyon and Fox Hollow, and they're so small and identified as low risk, those ones don't have any basins planned, but they're, again, classified as low risk, and they're, as far as the area, they're very, very small. Now, again, as the staff pointed out, the challenging thing with alluvial fans is they can jump from one channel to the other. So again, even with all these basins, if we get all 7 basins built, that will significantly reduce the risk. But again, nature is by definition unpredictable, and I think that's an important message we want to send is nothing we can do can eliminate all the risk. We can take this information as far as where there are high risks and things like that, and we can use it to inform our policy making, decision making. That's something that we didn't have the luxury of because these are not, not having them be FEMA identified floodplains is kind of good and bad. It means that potentially people are not being forced to buy flood insurance from their mortgage company, which they may like having that extra cost not on their plate. But it also means that people who darn aware of that, or maybe don't aware of that, may have a flooding event and don't have flood insurance. I think as unfortunately as we've all learned, and a lot of our residents have learned recently, most people don't have flood insurance, and if you don't have flood insurance, your insurance doesn't cover you when the source of water comes from outside your
Natural source.
natural source. You have to buy an additional policy to get that. So the other thing we can do is, the nice thing about it being non-FEMA regulated is it gives that agency to the individual about what they want to do. So we can take some of this information and make it public and say, we've informed you whether you choose to buy flood insurance or not. Now you can make that choice for yourself.
So I do have one other question, Mayor, if I may. That sort of came out, I was listening to the comments around the HVAC and recommend builders, developers, they can go in and retroactively go in and fix that. That's extremely expensive. Is there something we can do from a code perspective that says if you're building in an alluvial fan developer, you need to have your air conditioning furnace in your attic? Because I had one in my attic and I had one in my basement in my current house, right? And so that way, that really expensive system is then outside of the floodplain, and it's not flood insurance, but it's also being proactive from the development perspective, because when you're building a house, it'd be much more cost effective to have your HVAC coming from the attic than having to, I can't even imagine retrofitting the system after you're drywalled and everything. So is that something we can consider as a council?
Yeah, and that is part of our flood code. So we do have some areas near the Jordan River, near the lake, that are FEMA regulated. And our code says in those areas, you either have to build the entire lot of the floodplain or appliances have to be in those areas.
The furnace has to be out of the basement.
Yeah.
Or no basement.
Anything has to be flood proofed. In those areas, you have a flood elevation established. In these areas, we would have to use this information to say, maybe it's a 2 or 3 foot depth. Maybe we say, you can have it, but it has to be a minimum of 3 feet
And
off.
sealing the basement wall, right? I mean, because we could have that be in our code where they have to put that black tarry stuff, and I just feel like this information seems very valuable, and I just want to know, and maybe this is something for the future, if you can come back, Jeremy, working with the consultants and stuff, what we as a council can implement in terms of code change in any of these alluvial 14 or 15 alluvial fans. You now have to seal your basements, just let's get ahead of it the best we can. We're not going to stop a developer from on their private property wanting to develop, but let's make sure that they're not cutting corners and letting that burden be held by a homeowner that might be the third home owner of that building. Let's help that third generation owner have a house that's going to be able to fight some of this. I mean, I was on the council when the big 70,000 tons of whatever of debris came. It was the worst timing possible after that big fire. But one thing I was so impressed with, and I just want to comment, my last comment on this, is how impressive I was with the residents, 5,000 resident volunteers. I mean, I remember talking to the Red Cross, and they said they'd never seen anything like it. They were turning volunteers away. I love that our community came together, but I would rather them come together like when we had our day of service and working in the community. We had over 1,000 people sign up. Again, just shows you. So we are able to fight these things as a community, but let's just do our best to get ahead of them. So thank you for the presentation, to all of the great information. It's not the most exciting topic, but it's such an important topic. So thank you to the consultants, and Jeremy, to you and your team.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things I have is this recent event that we had about a month ago, the rain that, 4 days of rain. Did it follow our models? I mean, the flow and stuff that we predicted, did it fall? Was it pretty predictable to this? Or no? Not that it would.
That was just a straight rain event, right? There was that had nothing to do with alluvial or debris.
But it didn't trigger an alluvial or anything.
No, luckily, we did, if you actually remember, Mark and I were a little nervous. We had a small fire, if you remember, south of Grandview and a little bit west.
About a week before. Yeah.
About a week before, we checked on things, and actually I drove up and went to the Losi debris basin, and the Losi Canyon debris basin, which is above Lake Mountain Estates, had about a foot of water in it. So even though that wasn't necessarily after a fire in that location and there wasn't a lot of debris, that was, if you look at, that's about a 5 or 6 acre footprint, 1 foot deep. That's a lot of water that traditionally, and actually Councilmember McComber knows because he's been here so long, those homes on the backside of Lake Mountain Estates have historically flooded frequently.
Right.
There was not a drop of water that got to any of those homes because of that debris basin. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, the things we've done before, I
Right.
mean,
Where
this
we
was,
saw issues in that rain event was more on a very hyper-local level, right? We had issues with downward sloping cul-de-sacs with a single box, like on, and it clogged with debris because we had such a, and then the street flooded.
so
It's a
just
whole
on,
different-
just on public record, I just want to make sure that this isn't something we're looking at making changes now. We've done a lot of work already, and this is just more data for
This
us to
is-
consume.
Yeah, this is a partnership the city has entered into with the Army Corps, starting back
Yeah.
when they first did the Silver Jackets program, back in 2016, 2017. And it's been something that we've been ongoing on multiple levels of studies for the last 5, 6, 7 years. It resulted in us getting funding for the Low Sea Canyon Debris Basin, getting the information we need. We have now construction money for the Foxhole Debris Basin. So that debris basin, we actually have gotten through phase 1. We're in construction. We're already negotiating with property owners to buy that. And then we are in planning stages for the 4 other basins in Clark Canyon. So that is all kind of a domino effect of this initial work that we did with the Army Corps and their Silver Jackets program and this team. And there's even some team members who aren't on this call that were instrumental in helping with that. So
Thank you, Jeremy. And the second thing I have in Mark, I don't know if this is for you or this information that we have here to get ahead of it. I mean, I know we're planning on maybe doing some proactive, these new bases and stuff, but with this information, can we give this to the public? Those people that were in those alluvial, whether it was ketchup or water, depending on those scenarios that we're talking about, can we get them information
we can
or
make
is that something that
information-
we can do the city? I mean, I know a lot of people are watching this on YouTube and they'll all probably be informed anyway, but is there something that we can do to reach out to the citizens?
It's a public meeting. No, we can make this available. The one thing that I want to be very clear on is these debris flows are in kind of a worst case.
Right.
It's after a burn scar. And we see that a lot on Lake Mountains, but like right now, risk is really, there's a lot of vegetation out there and we're not necessarily in fear of some of those big types of events. And so obviously we predict the worst case and these are worst case scenarios and modeling different worst case scenarios. And so obviously it's a possibility, but we also don't want to cause people to lose sleep at night thinking, oh my goodness, the rain event that's going to come through tonight is going to potentially lead to that kind of debris flow or something. So yeah, absolutely. We want people to be informed. That's why we do this. That's why we're planning ahead. That's why we'll be applying for grants and look at ways to mitigate. And really the goal of an effective emergency management program is to mitigate now while things are good and while we have time. And so hopefully we can get those preventative measures in place for that. But again, absolutely, it is public. We'll make these slides available to the public as part of that.
They didn't know about, I mean, you'd think they would, but they weren't educated on their insurance and what it would cover, and they didn't know that they didn't have flood insurance. They thought they did, and then they got stuck. So education and maybe in this area, this is what we would recommend for coverage. Thanks.
We have an amazing public outreach team that can kind of get some information out there. And
happens to be, right?
And I think that you actually did some outreach too. I remember seeing some of that.
We actually have a pretty robust page on our website regarding flood insurance as well, which kind of was built after the
2012.
2020 fire.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I absolutely, I think the best thing we can do, suggested was bring you back maybe a menu of things that we could recommend, and we could discuss those options and see which ones you think are that practical approach to assisting with, we always don't want to overregulate, but we want to provide assistance, and we can provide you a menu of options and find which ones make the most sense for these areas to help even make it better for future residents, right? Unfortunately, we can't fix something that's someone who has already dealt with a negative situation, but we can certainly learn from it and help tweak it in the future. You joke, but actually, the Mountain View corridor will be very helpful.
Yes, it will.
There's a car on it.
30 feet and the water won't even go over it. But what'll happen is it'll go down and they go through the overpass.
I need a microphone. Possible motion to enter into closed session for the purchase, exchange, or lease of property pending or reasonably imminent legislation, the character, professional competence, or the physical or mental health of an individual, or the deployment of security personal devices or systems.
Second.
Oh, she's gonna say so made first. Now say second.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
First and second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Any opposed?
We'll take a short recess.
You guys.
Thank you.
Mayor, and just as a reminder,